All right, let's jump right in. If you really want to understand who we are today, we've got to go back. I mean, way back. We're about to take a journey millions of years into the past to meet our most ancient relatives, the hominids, and see just how much and maybe how little has actually changed.
So just look at this timeline for a second. The story of us, of humanity, is just incredibly mind-bogglingly long. Everything we think of as history, the pyramids, ancient Rome, the internet, that's all just a tiny, tiny sliver at the very, very end of this line. Our real story started long before any of that, with our early ancestors just figuring out how to survive on a very different planet.
So who exactly were these ancient relatives? What does it even mean to be a hominid? Let's break that down, because it's a pretty important piece of the puzzle.
To put it simply, think of it like our extended family tree. The term hominid is basically the scientific name for the group that includes us, Homo sapiens, and all of our extinct ancestors, after our evolutionary line split off from chimpanzees. So, and this is the key part, these aren't just any ancient apes. They are on the direct path that eventually led to us.
Now, these three things you see here, these were like their evolutionary superpowers. These are what gave hominids a real edge. Walking on two legs? Well, that freed up their hands to do other things. Using tools? That let them get to new kinds of food. And being able to adapt to different environments? That meant they could spread out all over the place and thrive. These weren't just random little quirks, they were the absolute keys to their survival.
To really get a feel for this story, we kind of need to meet its most famous character. So let's talk about Lucy. She is, without a doubt, maybe the most important hominid fossil ever found. You could call her our star witness from a world that's been lost to time.
Just let that number sink in for a minute. 3.2 million years ago. That's how long ago Lucy was walking around in the place we now call Ethiopia. Her skeleton gives us this incredible, priceless window into a supercritical moment in our own evolution.
And this is exactly why she was such a total game changer for science. See, for a long, long time, scientists thought that our ancestors got big brains first and that intelligence led to everything else. But Lucy's skeleton flipped that idea completely on its head. She proved that hominids were walking upright, a lot like we do, while they still had small, chimp-sized brains. She showed us that standing on 2 feet was the first giant leap, the foundational step that came way before our brains started to get so big.
Okay, so we know they walked upright, but what was a day in the life actually like for them? I mean, what kind of skills did you need just to make it to tomorrow?
This really helps put it all in perspective. They had the basics covered, for sure. They could make simple stone tools for things like cutting meat or scraping hides. They were pros at gathering edible plants and probably hunting small animals. And yeah, they could definitely communicate, probably with a whole range of sounds and gestures. But now look at what they didn't have. No written language, no complex technology, nothing beyond what was absolutely essential to survive. And that brings us to this really fundamental idea. Without all the fancy tools or complex language we have, their greatest assets were each other and whatever they could learn from experience. They got by through cooperation, by figuring things out through trial and error, and by sticking together in small groups. Teamwork wasn't just a nice idea. It was the only thing that kept them alive.
So this all leads us to the big comparison. We've seen where our story started. Now let's put it side by side with where we are today. It's the best way to really appreciate the incredible journey our species has been on. I mean, this table pretty much says it all, right? We went from a small, simple brain to a large, complex one that can do things like imagine the future. We went from simple chipped rocks to supercomputers and spaceships. From basic grunts and gestures to poetry and computer code. And we went from living in small, nomadic groups to building massive, interconnected global societies. The leap forward has been nothing short of staggering.
But here's the thing, for all of that mind-blowing change, there's a really powerful thread that still connects us directly to them. We still, fundamentally, rely on those same core skills. Sure, our problems are different now, but we solve them in the same way, by innovating, by working together, and by learning from one another. That's the real inheritance they left us.
So you might be wondering, why does a 3.2 million-year-old skeleton even matter today? Why should we care about these super distant relatives? Well, because their story is chapter 1 of our story.
Seriously, every single thing we have built as a species, every city, every piece of technology, every idea, it all rests on the foundation that they laid, brick by brick. The ability to make a tool, to work in a team, to adapt when things get tough, these aren't modern skills. They're ancient instincts, honed over millions of years of just trying to survive, that made everything else we've done possible.
So, we'll end on this thought.
Our ancestors faced incredible dangers every single day, and they not only survived, but they thrived for millions of years with not much more than sharp rocks and each other. Their legacy is us. So looking forward, with all of our amazing technology and all of our knowledge, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What will our legacy be?